I am happy to introduce today our guest speaker and dear Dharma friend, Reverend JIKO Mary Beth NAKADE, resident minister of our neighboring temple, Daifukuji Soto Mission in Honala. Daifukuji is a Soto Zen Buddhist temple. Reverend JIKO was raised in Kona and is a graduate of Konawaina High School. Following high school, Reverend JIKO studied at Seattle University School, the Monetary Institute of International Studies, and the University of Hawaii at Manoa, where she majored in Japanese language and religion. From 1983 to 1984, as a recipient of the Crown Prince Akihito Scholarship. She studied Buddhism at Komazawa University, a Soto Zen university in Tokyo, Japan. She received her Buddhist name, Taishin JIKO, while training as a lay person at a Soto Zen women's training monastery in Nagoya, Japan. In 1999, Reverend JIKO was accepted into the Hawaii Soto Shu Ministerial Training Program. For 5 years, she trained under her teacher, the Reverend Ryuji Tamiya. She was asked to serve as Daifukuji Soto Mission's resident minister in 2004 and has held this position for the past 18 years, assisted by her daughter, Amy Jikai Nakade. Reverend JIKO and her husband, Michael, have 2 adult children, Amy and Ryan, and a dog named Michu. Reverend JIKO is here in person at the temple this morning. Please give a warm, welcoming aloha to Reverend JIKO by showing your hands in applause.
Good morning, everyone, and aloha. And Harrison, thank you so much for that nice introduction. You're a marvelous MC. And to Reverend Lane, Kona Honganji Buddhist Temple, Sangha, and all of you there on Zoom. I recognize so many of your faces. Thank you for inviting me to observe Nirvana Day together with you. In 1988, when my daughter Amy was 2.5 years old, I remember one morning she came over to me in her pajamas when she woke up and she said, "Mommy, I have something to tell you." Then she leaned over and she whispered in my ear. And this is what I heard. Breathing in, I calm body and mind. Breathing out, I smile. Dwelling in the present moment, I know this is the only moment. 3 decades later, I remember that moment clearly. How amazed and delighted I was that my little girl's recitation of one of Thich Nhat Hanh's mindfulness verses. This Vietnamese Zen teacher, poet, and peace advocate was just becoming known in the United States at that time, and he had already entered my family's life. In fact, the story about Amy, which I just shared, was included in a book called Dharma Family Treasures, Sharing Buddhism with Children. My husband, Amy, and I were fortunate to have been living in Berkeley, California back then, when Thich Nhat Hanh's first books were being published by Parallax Press in Berkeley. I remember reading one of his earliest books called Being Peace, and knowing immediately that I had found a wonderful Dharma teacher whose teachings spoke to me, a young mother with a little child at home and a husband in graduate school. I remember reading in Being Peace these words: if we are peaceful, if we are happy, we can blossom like a flower, and everyone in our family, our entire society will benefit from our peace. And these words, life is filled with suffering, but it is also filled with many wonders, like the blue sky, the sunshine, the eyes of a baby. To suffer is not enough. We must also be in touch with the wonders of life. They are within us and all around us, everywhere, every time. Who was this Buddhist teacher whose words were clear and refreshing, alive and full of wisdom and compassion? Who was this teacher who spoke directly to me, enhanced my appreciation of the Dharma, and gave me guidance in mothering my little child? Who was this teacher whose words were simple, calm, and poetic? I knew then that he would be one of my teachers in this life. Then I heard that Thich Nhat Hanh was going to speak at a small theater in Berkeley, and decided that I needed to be there. I think it was my cousin Joan who took me. What I vividly remember to this day is how soft his voice was. When he began speaking, I remember thinking, I wish someone would turn up the microphone volume. His voice, so gentle and quiet, was like a breeze rustling the leaves of the bamboo. And by the way, someone did go up on stage and increase the mic volume, much to my relief, and I think to the relief of many others. For I so needed to hear what this gentle Vietnamese Buddhist monk had to say. How to describe this soft-spoken Buddhist teacher in simple brown robes who walked everywhere, slowly and mindfully, as in my tradition we do when practicing King Hing, or walking meditation during periods of sitting meditation called Zazen. In the preface of Being Peace, I found the perfect description of Thich Nhat Hanh by Richard Baker Roshi, who was quoted as saying, Thich Nhat Hanh is a cross between a cloud, a snail, and a piece of heavy machinery, a true religious presence. Yes, I thought this is the perfect description of this humble Vietnamese Buddhist monk. In Berkeley, Mike, Amy, and I were living in family housing in an apartment located on the grounds of a Christian seminary, Pacific School of Religion, where my husband was studying theology. We were the only Buddhist family at this Christian seminary. As a parent of a young child who was just about to start preschool in a community to which I was very new, I felt I needed to somehow ground myself and find a way to really take refuge in the three treasures, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha every day. For I did not have a Sangha with which to practice meditation. I did not have the space in my life at that time for any kind of formal Buddhist study. But my job was to be a mother to Amy. I found in Thich Nhat Hanh's writings all that I needed to nourish myself spiritually at that time. So with Amy in my arms and tagging along beside me, my greatest wish was to mother her in a way that was conscious and mindful. When she at 2.5 had whispered into my ear the poem by Thich Nhat Hanh, I knew that she was always watching me and imitating me and absorbing into her body and mind her first Dharma teachings. I was Amy's sensei, and Amy was my sensei, and Thich Nhat Hanh was one of our many greatly beloved senseis. His teachings on mindfulness became a part of our daily lives. I remember purchasing some cards illustrated by Mayumi Oda, whom my family had the good fortune of meeting and getting to know while we lived in the Bay Area, thanks to my cousin Mushim Ikeda, who introduced us. On these cards were short verses, mindfulness verses by Thich Nhat Hanh, and I posted them all over our little apartment in Berkeley. I believe it was Mushim who taught us the song, Breathing In, Breathing Out. And Amy and I sang it all the time. This is a well-known song from Thich Nhat Hanh's mindfulness community and Plum Village Sangha. I'll share it with you. It goes, breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. I am blooming as a flower. I am fresh as the dew. I am solid as a mountain. I am firm as the earth. I am free. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. I am water reflecting what is real, what is true. And I feel there is space deep inside of me. I am free, I am free, I am free. Well, a number of years went by and our little family grew with the arrival of Ryan. And Amy, who was in kindergarten in San Francisco, started to teach her baby brother the songs that she knew. So Thich Nhat Hanh continued to be very much a part of our lives. And we would sing his songs and mindfulness verses in the car when we were out for a drive. And we would sing them when we were playing on the playground. And then when our family moved back to Kona to take care of my mom, Tutu Mildred, I began helping our minister at Daifukuji, Reverend Ryuji Tamiya. I began helping him with the children's Dharma program, our Sunday school program. And we were able to bring in the songs and verses of Thich Nhat Hanh to teach the children. And I was so grateful that Reverend Tamiya also appreciated Thich Nhat Hanh's teachings and found them very meaningful. He invited Arnie Cutler and Therese Fitzgerald, Soto Zen teachers who had helped Thich Nhat Hanh start Parallax Press in Berkeley to offer days of mindfulness at Daifukuji. For Arnie and Therese had moved to the Big Island and were living in Kohala at the time. Being of the Soto Zen Buddhist tradition, we introduced the children to the practice of Zazen, sitting in silence, and taught them to pay attention to their breath. And our dear music teacher at the time, Auntie Tora Waleski, played her guitar and led us in singing this mindfulness verse, also from Thich Nhat Hanh, which helped the children to pay attention to their breathing and to ground themselves in the Buddhist teachings in the Dharma. In, out, deep, slow, calm, ease, smile, release, present moment, wonderful moment. These mindfulness verses entered our hearts and minds in a natural, slow, unhurried sort of way, kind of like rice and bananas and lilikoi jam. They entered our bodies and became part of ourselves. My son Ryan, like his big sister Amy, grew up singing these songs together with the students in our Dharma school program at Daifukuji. And as a college student, Ryan had the opportunity to travel abroad with a group of students and their professor. Their study of world cultures and consciousness took them to wonderful spiritual places like Stonehenge, Assisi, Bodh Gaya, Mother Teresa Center in Calcutta, the birthplace of Paramahansa Yogananda, and finally to Plum Village, France. When he came home, Ryan told me how special each one of these spiritual places were. He also said that when he entered the meditation hall at Plum Village, the monastery founded by Thich Nhat Hanh, and heard the Sangha singing, breathing in, breathing out, and other songs from his childhood Dharma classes, he said that he started to cry. In fact, I think he said to me, "Mom, I started to bawl right there in the meditation hall at Plum Village." With tears flowing down his cheeks, he said that far away from his home in Hawaii, he felt that he had come home right there in Plum Village, France, among the Sangha of Thich Nhat Hanh. I know, and maybe you know, that my need to talk about Thich Nhat Hanh stems from his recent passing on January 22nd in Vietnam. He was 95. He had brought the Buddhist teachings and practice to millions around the world. In his speech, in his practice, in his presence, in his very being, the teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha shone and were transmitted to so many people, Buddhists as well as non-Buddhists. During the days following his passing, I watched on YouTube the various ceremonies held each day by his communities of monks and nuns and lay people in Vietnam, in Plum Village, in the United States, and in his various practice centers around the world. And I felt just deep, deep gratitude for this extraordinary Buddhist teacher who had touched my life, the lives of my children, my family, and the lives of countless others. I felt a need to grieve together with our global Sangha around the world. And I realized that although we are Buddhists belonging to various traditions, we are one global Sangha taking refuge in Buddha, in the Dharma, and in the Sangha. And Thich Nhat Hanh had brought us all together in harmony. So while listening to and watching the gentle, soft-spoken monks, nuns, and lay people of the various Thich Nhat Hanh Sanghas, chanting, singing, bowing, moving mindfully, and vowing to carry on their teachings' legacy of compassionate service, at the same time, I was tuning in to what was happening in other parts of the world. And I could see the continuing suffering and division caused by the coronavirus, the threat of war in Ukraine, the threats to our democracy here in the United States, and just the many manifestations of greed, hatred, and ignorance in our world. It was such a stark contrast, which kind of disturbed me just watching all of that going on. But I remembered my little girl's voice whispering in my ear 30 years ago in Berkeley. Breathing in, I calm body and mind. Breathing out, I smile. Dwelling in the present moment, I know this is the only moment. So thank you to this great teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh, and thank you to our great global Sangha across the planet and to all who practice being peace. On this occasion of Nirvana Day, on which we commemorate the parinirvana of Shakyamuni Buddha, I bow in deep gratitude. Thank you so much. It's wonderful to spend the morning with all of you.
Thank you for your wonderful Dharma message, Reverend JIKO. Now let's all sing the Gatha, Evening Gatha. Please sing along at home with